So today we're going to be learning, we're going to have an introduction to Scratch, which is kind of a simpler way of coding, because I want to take a guess at what this code does.
When you put the variable, when you click the green flag, the variable number will turn to 0, and then 1. Yeah, I'll do whatever is in that 10 times.
Yeah. I know, so it's like a little bit confusing at first, but basically what this does, so this number starts at 0, and then the sprite will say the value of the number out loud, but it'll start increasing by 1. So it'll go from 1, the sprite will say 1, then it'll wait, and then it'll say 2, and then it'll wait, and then it'll say 3, 4, and it'll repeat that 10 times. So again, what this does is the sprite will just say the number in increasing increments. Alright, and then in simpler words, the sprite will count to 10. Okay, so before we move on to the next activity, does anyone have anything that they would like to review? So motion blocks, conditionals, if statements, and loops, or variables. I know it's kind of a lot to process, but we'll go through it slowly and together. So if we don't have any questions, do you guys think you're up for a challenge? Alright, and then quickly I will show you what we are trying to create. We're just going to try to create this. We will learn about variables and how they will make coding more efficient. So all you'll need, I'm going to ask you guys to open up this link, scratch.mit.edu. I can paste it in the chat. So just make sure you get that website out and then we can get started. I put it in the chat so you guys can just copy and paste it into your browser. So once you got Scratch open, can I get a thumbs up? You might need to make an account or set it up, so just let me know if you need help with that. So let's take like 1 minute, again, just get Sprite open and create an account if you have to. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a new Sprite, or we're going to create a new code by clicking in the top left. Alright, but first, just take a few minutes to get Scratch open and also create an account. And just give me a thumbs up once you've created your account and are ready to move on. Alright, so now that we've kind of got situated, we have everything we need, we have Scratch open, we're going to start with the activity. And if you remember, our goal is to create that blast off rocket ship. So the first step is to create a rocket ship sprite. And how you do this is you click the choose a sprite icon in the bottom right of your Scratch page. And then you search through, or you can type in blasting off rocket ship. So one thing you can do is create a new variable called countdown and set it to 10 at the beginning of the game. And in case you remember, I think a few activities ago, or a few slides ago, we went over how to count to 10. So now we're just kind of going to do that in reverse. So again, the best way to do this is to set a new variable called countdown at the top. So here is like what your code should look like so far. So we have when the flag is clicked. This is optional, but this will set the location of the sprite to the middle of the page, or else it might move around a little bit. So it might be helpful to input this, creating a variable. And then the next step is to like make it count down from 10.
Where do you find that block?
Oh,
where do you find the set countdown block?
That is in variables. And you can just create a new variable. And then once you've created a variable, you want to say that variable out loud. This just means just 10, and then the value decreases. So it'll say 10 minus 1 is, and then it'll say 9, 8, 7, and it'll repeat that 10 times. So again, it's a little bit confusing, but what this is doing is just making the rocket ship count to saying blast off.
I did it.
Oh, you got blast off?
Yeah, I got blast off, and it goes up a little.
It goes up a little bit? Oh, okay. So we haven't really gotten there, but if you want a hint, you can use this forever variable. And then you can use, like, change y by 10. Like, that's kind of, that way it'll just continue going up by 10. Alright, but we haven't really gotten there yet. So you don't always have to do, like, when green flag starts. You can also start it by broadcasting. And this will allow for communication between sprites code too.
I guess when the sprite does something, the other sprite will move 10 steps.
Exactly. And what will the first sprite do?
It would broadcast.
Exactly. So in other words, one sprite will like say whatever message one is set to say, and then once the other sprite receives that message, they will carry out an action, in this case move 10 steps. Alright, so make sure that you have your Scratch opened up, and then let's get started. So the first step is to create 2 sprites that can be your favorite animals, and hopefully one is like a predator, and that will be sprite 1, and then sprite 2 can be the responder, or like the prey. Have had a chance to look for 2 animals, and then the next step for sprite 1, so make sure that you're coding for only sprite 1. But before we do that, is everyone ready to move on? Do we have our 2 sprites set as 2 animals? No? Okay. Take a little bit longer to do that, but here's the code that I'm creating. I have a rabbit and a bear. And again, how you change that sprite. Alright, you done? How you change your sprites is you just click choose a sprite, and then you can choose from the. So Leia and Connor, do we have our sprites chosen now? You have follow mouse pointer at all times. And then you can make a conditional block that says if it is touching the other sprite, you can broadcast a message. Okay, so don't look at my code on the screen, but in the motion there is go to, and then you can change this to mouse pointer. And then if you make sure that it is coding for the bear or whatever your attacker is, it will follow the mouse pointer. And then another hint, make sure that you're using this control block. So let's think about like 2 to 3 more minutes, and remember what we're trying to do is that the attacking animal will follow the mouse pointer at all times, and then you can do a conditional, or if it is touching the other animal, then it'll broadcast a blank message, and if it is not broadcasting an animal, and again, remember what we're trying to do is make sure that the attacking animal will always follow mouse pointer, and then you can do a conditional, like if it is touching the other animal, then broadcast attack. If it is not touching the animal, broadcast chase. So let's take maybe 1 to 2 more minutes. If it is touching the llama or the other animal, then broadcast attack, or else broadcast chase. So again, I have this in my code. When the green button is clicked, my bear follows my cursor, and if it is touching this rabbit, then it'll broadcast attack. Alright. Awesome. So hopefully you guys have something pretty similar to this. Okay, the next step is to make the other sprite react. So basically what you want to do is change costumes and say hey when it receives an attack, and then change to another costume when it receives chase. Alright. So here we want to experiment a little bit with changing costumes, which can be found in the looks. Also, before you start programming, make sure that you're coding for the rabbit or whatever animal you're using. And basically what you also want to do is you can make different lines. You can do like when the flag is clicked, like change costume, or when I receive chase. And then remember what we're trying to do. If attack is received, then change the costume to one that is running away and say hey. If chase is received, then just switch costume and run away. Okay, so we're going to start wrapping up, but here's what I have so far. I have when the green flag is clicked, switch costume to rabbit E, which is this one. And if it receives attack, switch costume to one that is running and say hey. And then when I receive chase, glide 2 seconds to random position. So this is just one way to do it, but basically the sprite will just kind of move randomly when the bear is near it. But there's many different ways to do this. And here is another way. This one is when it is clicked, switch costume. When attack is received, switch costume to one that is running away and say hey. When I receive chase, move 2 steps and switch costume. Alright, so where did we get on this? Were we almost done? Or do we kind of understand what this code is saying? Are we a little bit lost?
I don't really get it.
Alright, but basically what each one of these is doing, like when the green flag is clicked, it also has to do with like the broadcasting messages. So if we go back to the bear, I know it's kind of a lot to take in, but we can have more practice with this. So basically, if the bear touches the rabbit, then the bear will broadcast the message. And then what we did here is when the broadcasted message is received, then an action is carried out. Yeah. But again, like this was just supposed to be an introduction. We don't have to be experts in it. But it was so good to kind of go through.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Hopefully we just understand kind of how everything to create your code like this. So yeah, before we move on to the discussion and kind of wrap it up, does anyone have any questions? And did anyone like get kind of close or get there at all? No? Okay. Well, I want to make sure that you guys like are learning something. So compare your code to mine. And did anyone get the attacking animal? Kind of with my help? Yeah. But then remember that in the bear, we created that'll broadcast attack, and if it is not touching, the broadcast chase. So if the bear is touching, basically the rabbit costume will switch and say hey. And then when chase is received, the body is just moving kind of randomly. Alright, a little bit confusing. And then here's the other, the not my version. So we can maybe take like 1 to 2 more minutes if you guys want to try changing your code and making it look a little bit more like this. What's most important, not that you necessarily get it down on the first try, but that when you read this code, you have a general understanding of what it does. Because personally, this isn't my first time using Scratch. I've been using it for like a little bit, so I understand it. But it's just important to kind of familiarize ourselves with the language of code and have a general understanding of what each command does.
Is there like a block that says when she's in front of me or something? Or when like that?
I'm not sure, but I'm looking through them now. You can do you can do this one. So in the sensing, which is like that light blue color, you can do touching bear walking, And then this can be paired with like, if touching bear walking, then, you know. But another way to do this, since we already created that broadcast message, if they're touching, you can just insert like when I receive that message. But I guess, yeah, that is another way to do it, to say, like, if they are touching, then blank. Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too confusing, but I think we're gonna move on. So before we kind of like wrap this lesson up, I have a question. Why do we use broadcasts? What was different this time versus the one where we just had the rocket ship?
Talking.
Yeah, exactly. Talking. So broadcasts can help us, can help two sprites interact with each other. Yeah. So again, broadcasting can help pass information between sprites. It'll also make coding simpler. Because like Leia said, we could a little bit confusing, but hopefully we have like a general idea of what Scratch does and what we can do with it. So hopefully you guys are left with that, but and then once you fill out that reflection form, you guys are free to go. And thank you so much for coming. And again, hopefully this lesson didn't confuse you too much, but if you're interested in Scratch and making more programs, feel free to make some more later today.